do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Well, I'd like to say good morning, grand rising, however you would like to be greeted. Welcome to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, we're going to have a great conversation today, and if you would like to be a participant in or on the program, all you have to do is call this number. It's 516-453-9921 and press the number 1 button, and I can get to your calls. And speaking of that, I'm having an issue on my computer. Your name is not going to come up. This is my computer, not anything that the station is down or anything. I can't get it to slide over. So now it is very important that if you want to participate in the conversation, that you make sure you depress that number 1 button, and you will get in line. And I will try to work around this as best as I can. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. That's the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. You can do that. And you can also join the chat room, as the good brother Emery Lumumba has joined it. Let's Get On Code is in there. And Transcendent is in the chat room. So you can do that, and occasionally I will read the chats and along with some Gmails. Okay, let's start off the program. Now, I can't call your name because I can't see it up here yet, and I don't know if I will today. But anyway, I'm going to cue you in here. Let's go to this caller right here. Caller, you're going to be the first caller there. I wish I could say your name, but I can't. But anyway, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question?
Good morning. My name is Gregory, regular caller. How you guys doing today?
Hey, Gregory.
Hey. I was curious to know if you guys heard it. I know it'd probably be considered BGQ, but the former president said that LeBron James should have the surgery and play on the women's team. And I thought about Mr. Fuller, how he's talking about the eighth area, and I just wanted to know what he thought about that, and if he heard that comment.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, have you heard that comment?
No, a comment by whom?
Who made that comment there, Gregory?
Trump. Trump said that LeBron James should have a surgery and play on the women's team.
Okay.
No, I didn't hear anything. I haven't heard anything about that one way or another. I haven't heard, I don't know anything about that. What was the comment?
That LeBron James should have, I guess, that surgery and play on the women's team. Wait a minute. Is that right, Gregory?
Yeah, he said that he should have the surgery and play on, transgender, become a transgender and play on a women's team.
Oh,
yeah.
Become a transgender. Okay. Trump said this.
Yes. And I'll say a lot if I could, Mr. Bobby.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Well, who is it's a transgender person who's going to play on the women's team?
LeBron James should have, I guess what was alleged said that the former President Trump said that LeBron James had have that surgery and then play on a woman's team as a transgender.
Well, has LeBron James had that type of surgery?
As far as I know, he hasn't. Wait a minute, let me. Gregory, as far as you know, is a project.
No. Thank God he hasn't. No, he hasn't had that surgery. It was just a comment. I figured it would be BGQ. But let me ask you this one question then. I want to ask Mr. Fuller, how does he feel about the sale of his books? Does he feel like his books have increased in sales?
Wait a minute.
What kind of book?
I want to ask Mr. Fuller, has his book sales increased?
Oh. Well, yes. I mean, sometimes, and then sometimes it kind of waxes and wanes. And that book...
Oh, Mr. Fuller, I was saying have your book sales increased for yourself?
The book sales have what?
Increased for you.
You said they have?
Gotten better. I'm asking you, have they gotten better?
Not appreciably, because, I'm just one podcast out there among, I guess, hundreds, maybe thousands. So, who's Neely Fuller? I mean, that's the first thing people will ask. If you get on the New York Times bestseller list, then people know who you are all over the world instantly. And everybody rushes out to get your book, even if they never get around to reading it, or even not even thinking about reading it. They'll just buy it because it's on the bestseller list. And, and it looks good on a coffee table. That's the way a lot of books are bought. But everybody's writing a book nowadays, and my book is just among a whole bunch of others. So I'd like for my book to be in every house, everywhere where there are non-white people, because I'm dealing with what I consider to be the biggest problem that the non-white people of this planet have, and that's the system of white supremacy. And so the book does address it directly and makes suggestions about what to do about it. And it's not a lot of, last time I checked, there's quite a few small ones scattered around, but most books written about the race issue is about the race issue. In other words, everything covers what happened, in Tulsa, and what happened back in ancient Kemet, and what happened this and what happened that. Very few books have what you call codified instructions about what to do about anything, except, you'll have a 800, 900, or 2,000 page book, and it will end. Now, when they get to the instruction part, they'll tell you all about the great civilizations and all like that, and who did what and who fought what war and what battle, and all the names that came down, and how many demonstrations you had in a certain year worldwide, protesting this and protesting that. Plenty of history, plenty of this, plenty of that, plenty of people bragging, plenty of people complaining. You get to the last page of a 2,000-page book, and it'll say, but with the heartfelt goodness and kindness of most of the people of the world, we will triumph! Exclamation point. And we'll give you any instructions about how to do anything on that very day that you read that when you walk out into the street and you want to know about how you're going to solve that problem you got right now in front of you today.
Yes.
Because you got a problem today. If you're a black person on this planet, most likely you got some type of problem. Nobody even attempting to write one line about what you can do about that problem. And we need more books like that. Just flat out from here on in. That's my recommendation. My book, I just say I'm making a feeble effort to do something like that. But I'm saying anybody sitting down to write anything now, I mean, oh yeah, poetry is fine. It's inspiring and whatnot. But hey, you're in the unemployment line. Does anybody write anything directly about what you're doing in that line and how that's going to come out and how to make it come out the way you want it to? Is anybody writing anything about that, right? Hands-on. Anybody. I mean, all the great scholars that we have tell you all about Kemet. But where's the, 17 books this author wrote? How many lines are in any of those books to tell you what to do about anything? Everybody needs to start asking those questions and direct them to Neely Fuller, too. He's not exempt. This is 2021, and everybody should be figuring out what? How to constructively solve a problem. Solve it. Solve it. Not talking about it and talking about, who did what and who did that and what, what some great black scientist did 8,000 years ago. How about just telling the average black person, the average black female, standing in the food stamp line with 2 babies in her arm? How about somebody writing about what to do about that? Right now. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. By 5 o'clock, solve her problem. Where is the great social scientists and all the great brain power that black people brag about in all the, historically black colleges? What about doing something other than profiling about solving an immediate problem? Just, immediate problems. Something it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you got to solve this problem by 5. How many books are written about that, including Neely Fuller's book? See, I'm talking about getting serious about serious things. Because we are doing a whole bunch of theater, truth be told.
Okay.
I mean, if we're going to express ourselves in poetry and all like that, and okay, poetry is fine. But is there any line in the poetry telling you what to do about something? Think about that. Anybody who's getting ready to make another black movie and brag about it, are there any lessons in that movie that you can take to the bank? Ask ourselves that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Gregory, and do not be a stranger. Mr. Fuller, you had mentioned something about a lot of books or a lot of things have been said about the Tulsa race riots, and one of the things that I just found out that there was a group called the Gap Band, which was comprised of brothers Charlie, Ronnie, and Robert Wilson, and the song that that group was named after streets in Tulsa, Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. That's how they came up with the Gap Band. And one of the songs that they had on there was the song that You Dropped the Bomb on Me. Came out of that, and that's the information that I did not know. Yeah, you dropped a bomb on me. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting to know about it. And I just found that out. I would say in the last 3 weeks. Now, other people may have known about that, but I didn't know about that. Did you know about that yourself, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I heard about it back when early on. The first time I heard about Tulsa, that's the first thing I heard. It was about the old biplanes, World War I. Anybody who's seen movies or picture books of World War I airplanes, some people owned them privately. And they had those type of planes can land in a cornfield. So some people had some of those planes, some white people, and a few black people. It was a place called Hatbox Field out from Muskogee, Oklahoma, right after World War II. And I think one of the pilots or at least one of the mechanics or somebody who was at one of the Tuskegee Airmen came out of World War II, and he had a couple of the planes. He might have rented them, I don't know what. But black people went up in them. I mean, and, he was trying to teach black people how to fly. And that was right after World War II in a small town in Oklahoma. I know about that because I went up in one of them. I went up in a Piper Cub. That's a single-engine plane with a top wing and a whole two people. I went up in it, and I was at the controls and whatnot. And I don't think I was even supposed to be in there because I was maybe about 13 years old. But the person, a black fellow, I forgot his name. I shouldn't have ever forgotten his name. But he was, struggling trying to get a little flying school started. I don't know what eventually happened to it. But in answer to the question, I knew about the biplanes flying over and homemade bombs being dropped on the people.
That's right. Okay. All righty. Let's go to Darnell. I think that's what they told me. Darnell, wait a minute if I can get you in. There we go. Darnell, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Mr. Fuller, according to the code, why is it important for non-white people, victims of the system of white supremacy, to always leave early before mess starts, according to the code? And Mr. Bobby, I'd like to stay on the line. Thank you.
Why is it important for victims of racism to always leave early?
Yes, before mess starts.
Leave what early?
Just leave a situation early that looks like it might be heading to messiness, because we're always in a tragic arrangement. But before it gets worse, why is it always constructive to leave?
When you're in a tragic arrangement. And why do black people try to leave it?
No, why should they leave early?
A tragic arrangement like what? There's a lot of tragic arrangements.
Any, none in particular, but why is it just always constructive to leave early?
Well, you'd have to ask the individual black person. That's the logical codified procedure. I mean, different people leave different situations for different reasons. Most arrangements that black people have in the system of white supremacy, just about all of them are tragic, either directly or indirectly, even when they don't appear to be so. Because as prisoners of war, that you're born into a prison. If you're black, your prison uniform is the color of your skin. And under the system of white supremacy, the system of white supremacy itself is a world prison. So you can't leave it. It's a world prison if you're black. That prison uniform stands out everywhere you go. Or the classification does if you're a light-skinned black person and you're still having the classification. You're still, hey, you come under the N-words. And that's all you are. I mean, that's what people have been taught to see, including black people. When we look at each other, we see the N-word. We're taught. That's what we are. We're nothing else other than that to be anything else. Totally unqualified to be anything else. Like back in the 1960s, they say, what do you call a black person that's got 15 degrees? And they say the N-word. Ain't no different. You're labeled. You're a prisoner of war forever. All right? You're nothing forever. I don't care what you so-called accomplish. You can brag on yourself. Prisoners brag on each other, but they're all prisoners. The warden don't care about them bragging. Let them brag, They're down there in my dungeon. They do what I say do. So they can brag about anything, to each other. They don't impress me. I don't care what they do. It's nothing to me.
Okay. All righty. All right, we'll leave you there, Darnell. Thank you, Emery, for coming back. I got concerned about you, but you're back, so that's good. Mr. Fuller, this is from the Gmails. It says, good morning. This is from Mr. Duncan. He says, good morning. Please have Mr. Fuller provide a clear, descriptive definition of what a man is. What does he consider a universal man to be according to compensatory logic?
Oh, perfection. Universal man, universal woman. Being completely in every area of activity, every minute of every day, a person that produces constructive results. That's the codified, straight to the heart answer. I mean, that codification is supposed to, simplify things and be telling the truth and be constructive. So that's it. Now, universal man and universal woman do not exist. No white person is qualified to be that. Why? Because for one thing, you practice justice. You guarantee that justice is practiced anywhere. When you arrive, if it's not justice there, you make it happen. You make it happen. Otherwise, you're not qualified to be a universal man and universal woman. You make it happen. Not stand around talking about it, you're going to give it a try. No, you make it happen because you know what to do to make it happen. You have to be just that smart. You can't be dumb and be a universal man and a universal woman. And being ghetto smart won't cut it. Ghetto smart is great in the ghetto. That's why millions of black people don't ever want to be in touch with no white people. They just want to be around nothing but black people, all right, so that they can be king of the ghetto. Because when they have to deal with white people, that's a whole nother ball game, and they can't handle it. We're proving that over and over and over again. So lots of black people look forward to being the greatest person on my side of town in the little hood where I am, the 4 blocks that I have been assigned to in the prison block. So I become, just like prisoners, king of the cell block. That's our aspiration, if many of us tell the truth. Someone was talking to me last night about going around to some of the traditional, and this is what was told to me, black colleges, and they say what most black colleges, the people who are in there, particularly those who have been there for years, what they are doing is just trying to be great on the campus. And they don't care what's going on anywhere else. They're all laser focused on campus politics and being big on the campus. I mean, and all the ceremonies that they have and whatnot, and handing out awards to each other. And this is what a black person told me that he has experienced by going around to the traditional black colleges. He said, man, most of them are just profiling. They're not preparing nobody for nothing. And that's what I heard as of last night. Say now that some individual teachers are doing the best they can under that type of stuff, but their voices are not heard because the administrations of most black colleges, they say, are mostly just jockeying for Negro positions, like real old school and not near as efficient, but just profiling, showing off. That's it. Showing off. That comes under show-offism. And preparing people for the real world. Oh, no. You just prepare people to look good while they're in college. And jockeying for positions and hand out awards. I mean, awards. An award for this, an award for that. And you didn't get one, but I did. and see, and according to the code, now what does the code say if that's really true? The white supremacists will support that type of activity all the way to the hilt. Yeah, keep them down there in the ghetto jungle, handing out awards to each other and walking around thinking that they are world champions and everything, and can't solve a single problem.
Okay. All righty. Thank you there. I believe that was Darnell. Yeah, thank you there. All right, let's do this here. Mr. Fuller, have you ever heard of the term race norming?
I've heard of it. I don't know what it means.
Okay. This comes from Black Speak. He says, Mr. Bobby, could you please ask Mr. Fuller about his opinion regarding race norming? As background, this is the meaning of race norming as defined on Wikipedia. Race norming, more formally called within group score conversion and score adjustment strategy, is the practice of adjusting test scores to account for the race or ethnicity of the test taker. In the United States, it was first implemented by the federal government in 1981 with little publicity and was subsequently outlawed by the Civil Rights Act of 1991. It was more frequently used by the NFL to determine whether or not to provide assistance to former black players based on black cognitive function versus white players. So he is asking, what is your opinion on that, being that this was just read to you?
Well, it sounds like something that leads a road that leads nowhere, because it doesn't say what the objective is and isn't, and it just sounds like a lot of words that don't mean anything. I don't know. I know I can't make of it. But if we're talking about education, if that would come under the second area of activity according to the code, it comes down to one question when we start talking about education. When you come out of that college, when you come out of that high school, any school, with a diploma in your hand, there should be a list at least 10 problems that you can solve right now on account of what you got in your hand. And if you don't have I would say a minimum of 10. Spend a lot of time in school. I mean, you go into elementary school, then they got such a thing as secondary school, and they got this type. It's all chopped up, which I say is a mistake right from the beginning, right out the gate. It's not supposed to be any such thing, according to counter-racist logic, as high school and college. People talking about Ivy League colleges. What are you saying? You're talking about royalism. I mean, that's where that came from. And they're supposed to, in the Northwestern Hemisphere, have gotten rid of that royal concept. School's supposed to be school. In other words, you look at the entire world and all the problems that the world has. Then you go into a building called a school. When you come out of that building and look at the entire world that you were looking at before you went in that building, your education is supposed to prepare you to come out of that school and solve all those problems you were looking at before you went in that school. And if you can't do that, you ain't educated. Now, that's the codification look, which means, hey, we got a huge job ahead of us that we didn't even know we had. If you look at it from that perspective, you go into a building called a school. I mean, it doesn't make any difference what the name of the building is or anything, who's dedicated to. All that's just window dressing. That doesn't mean anything. you're going into a building called school. Schools are supposed to provide education. Race norming or whatever you want to call it. I mean, hey, education. What is education? Preparing you to solve every problem that you come in contact with.
Okay, hold it right there, Mr. Fuller. We have to do this, and we'll come right back to that because I just have it marked down. Hold it right there. You are listening to the CRCS, which is the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on Blog Talk Radio, and we do .com, and we do thank you. If you'd like to get in contact with today's show, you can simply call this number, 516-453-9921, and hit the number 1 button, and you will get in call order. And then when your name is called or when I cue you in, then you'll be able to ask your question. Please, ma'am, please, sir, make it short. If you have a VGQ, then make that short also so that we can keep the show moving. Thank you. If you'd like to not do that and get on, contact me by the Gmail, the address is number 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And that will also go in rotation. And you can get in the chat room if you can. Be Good One is in there. JJ Home Loans is in there. Let's Get On Code. Produce 21 and Transcendent is in there. But they have lively conversations in there. You can get in there and do that. That's how you can access the show. In about 15 minutes, Mr. Fuller will speak about this outstanding book that he will get into in about, like I said, about 15 minutes. Okay, Mr. Fuller, we were speaking about schools, and you said the purpose is education.
Yes, the purpose of education is to prepare you to do one thing, and it's 2 words: solve problems. You come out of a school, and you can't make a list of the problems you can solve. What were you doing in there? That's all a school is supposed to do. I mean, you see broad generalizations, prepare you for life. I mean, they might go that far. I mean, when you first enter that school, I mean, and the principal comes out and makes a long speech, or when you finish, well, you're going forth into the world, do great things. Well, now, go into the details. What were the great things that you have now that you are going to do? Actually do. You don't have to ask a whole lot of questions because your questions were answered while you were in that school. See, when I came out of high school, I had a lot of questions. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I mean, I should come out of a school asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
You should know exactly where you're going and what you can do when you get there. When you come out of any school, I'm talking about you should bust that door down getting out of there because you are prepared to go to 15 or 20 different places where everything is going to start working like clockwork. I mean, from day one, you hit the ground running. You'll be exhausted at the end of your first day with all the things that you can do, know how to do, can do it efficiently, and be grabbing for the next thing.
Okay.
Can anybody imagine that? I can imagine it. Just talking about it now, I get excited. All right? That's the way it's supposed to be. But the average black person comes out of every school with a question mark over your head. Because I know that's what I did.
Yes, sir.
Question mark. I got a fistful of paper and a head full of question marks. What am I going to do now? It's scary out here.
Yes, sir.
All right? That's never supposed to happen.
All righty. Let's go to Atlanta. I don't have your name, but I'm going to cue you in here. Atlanta. Okay. Did I get you in here? Are you on?
Hello?
Yeah, you're on. I'm sorry, I can't get your name because it's not your fault. It's my fault. Something is the matter with my screen, so that's why I'm calling out your city. But anyway, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question?
Good morning. My name is Aisha, and my question for Mr. Fuller is, would he say that we have free will? And I have a follow-up question as well.
Oh, I haven't said nothing about free will, I don't think. I don't think I've ever even used that term the whole time I've been on the air. I don't even know what that means. I've never said that. Maybe I have, but, I've said a lot of things.
No, I'm asking, do you think we have free will?
Oh, we have a will to do something. Well, I don't know about that free part. See, I have problems with that word free. I don't think I use that word freedom nowhere in anything that I wrote. I say truth, justice, and correctness equals peace. That's the equation. You got to have truth, you got to have justice, and you got to have correctness in order to fulfill the mission of what we call, quote, unquote, and I always put that in parentheses, the word peace, which has never existed. That's something. But now that free will, I don't know what that, I know what willpower is. We all have that. But free, when you say the word free, I don't associate that with a black person at all. And I don't think you'll find that word anywhere, except maybe in my word guide about free and freedom. It might be in there. I have a lot of words in there. It might be in there somewhere. You can look in the word guide. I'll have to check it myself. But that'll be the only place where it's mentioned. But,
okay.
I don't recommend. I never talk about freedom. I don't use that expression because I don't really know what that means. Freedom to do what? So you have to have an add-on behind the word freedom. Freedom, because when you say freedom, you mean doing something. Freedom to do what? I don't believe in everybody having freedom to do what they want to do. I definitely don't believe that. Because if I believe that, I believe in drive-by shootings. I want to have the freedom to just go through the neighborhood and kill everybody. That's what I want. That's the freedom I'm looking for. Because there's a whole bunch of people out there who are looking for that kind of freedom right this minute as I speak. Because that's what they're going to do today. They want to have the freedom to do it. And they don't want anybody to stop them from doing it. They'll let you know that. I want to kill about 15 people right over there in that next block. Now, I don't want nobody to stop me. I want to be free to do it. Somebody's thinking that way right now, and they are going to do it, particularly among black people, everywhere in the world where you find black people.
Okay. What is your follow-up question?
I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
It really depended on how he answered, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
And I'll continue to listen.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Fuller, I'll tell you what we're going to do here. Hey, let me get it. Let's get your book in so we can go right through the remaining 21 minutes. So let's speak about your book, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, the textbook for victims of white supremacy is something that I'm mentioning in a, you might say, in the same ballpark with something I've mentioned throughout this program, the early part of this program, right now, this morning. And that is a book that's written for victims of white supremacy about what to think before you act, and it makes some suggestions, not telling you so much that you must think this way, but just saying, why not think this way? That's the approach of the textbook that I've written for victims of white supremacy. I mean, why not try this on for size? That's everything in the book is selective. A lot of things in the book people will look at and say, that's pure nonsense. I ain't going for this garbage. Well, just turn to another page. I wrote the book that way, with that in mind. I call it the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And that means that you compensate for not finding what you want on one page by looking at another page. Because on that other page, you'll see something maybe that's completely different from what you saw on the previous page. So that causes you to think on another level. See, so I'm trying to get people, first of all, to think about this problem called the race problem, and to think about it in many different ways. And then you choose a way, after you have thought about it, different things, you choose what you think is best, the best way to think about it, and then you speak about it. And I try to give some instructions about, or suggestions, that's the best way. I won't say instructions, because when you say instructions, you mean you're teaching. I don't consider myself teaching nobody nothing, because I don't know that much myself. If I knew that much, I would have solved the race problem, which is what I set out to do, and I haven't done it. So I'm feeling my way along with everybody else. And so how do you feel when you're feeling your way like a baby? What do you mean? You're trying this thing, and if that doesn't work, that's what compensatory action means. You try one thing, and it doesn't work, you try something else. In fact, I have a quote right here before me that I saw in the Washington Post newspaper yesterday. And it was a recent sign seen on an office wall that's in a prison. And it was in the prisoner's office space. It was a prisoner who was on some type of rehab program. And it says, if the plan doesn't work, change the plan, but never the goal. I'm going to say that again. If the plan doesn't work, change the plan, but never the goal. Now, what should be the goal of the black people of the planet, according to what I have written in the textbook for victims of white supremacy? The goal is to become, ultimate goal is to become universal man in total harmony with universal woman, doing nothing but harmonious and constructive things, every move they make. That's the ultimate goal. But the stumbling block is called racism, the system of white supremacy. You ain't going to have that, you ain't going to realize that goal. Nobody is, until you get rid of this system called racism. You got to get rid of the entire system. And to a lot of white people, they're getting real, anxious about people looking at it as being a system, because they don't, the average white person as an individual says, I'm not a racist, so you're lumping me all together with all the people who are racist. I mean, I resent that, and I'm going to push back on that. And a lot of white people are beginning to do that right now. And it's beginning to kind of give a jolt to some black people who are on the cutting edge of fighting racism. But then that's another story. But the book itself is about how to deal with racism, to use a slang expression, what to do about it on a daily basis. And you can get it by going to producejustice.com, producejustice.com. What words to use, what actions to take, what things to do, things not to do, and questions to ask, hundreds of questions maybe, when certain things are the way that they are. Because all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers,
yes,
according
sir.
to what I've written.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Let's go with Rachel, and she has this to say. She said, Mr. Fuller, today at the place I am allowed to work at, a presenter discussed the topic of being a transgender person. This presenter explained the logic of sexual confusion. He stated that a person who is sexually confused are at a higher risk for killing themselves if we don't call them the right pronoun. Mr. Fuller, how do you know when it is too late to inform people that they are sexually confused? Thank you so much for answering my question, Rachel.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know enough about transgenderism or anything dealing with LGBT, what the alphabets are. The gay rights movement. I don't know enough about it, except I do know this, and I say it over and over again. When it comes to black people, the white supremacists are all for it. And they are doing everything they can to degenderize black people worldwide. They are pushing the pedal to the metal 24 hours a day. They burn midnight oil on this one. And that is any black person that even hints that I can't quite make up my mind, and I actually have heard of a black person that I work with, for a short period of time right here in Washington, who actually wore dresses to work. And I understand that this black person said that sometimes they felt like they were a girl, and sometimes they felt like they were a boy. And sometimes they just couldn't make up their mind what they're going to be when they woke up in the morning. And from what I understand, this particular person said that he got that way from one of his father's friends when he was real young and even didn't even know what was going on. In other words, it's kind of among a whole bunch of people who say that they are quote unquote homosexual. They say, they have some of them say it outright. You got to catch them early. If you wait too late, you might not be able to turn them in the way you want them to go. And then a lot of people say, no, it don't make no difference how you catch them. If you ain't basically that way, you ain't going to get that way. I don't care what anybody tries to make you do. You just won't be that way. It's in your DNA. It's God-given. And I've heard that. So you hear different things from different people. So when you ask Neely Fuller about that, I'm not the person to ask about that. But I do know what the white supremacists are doing with it when it comes to black people. They are all in for it. To me, it's a terrible sign. If the white supremacists are all in for it, for black people, I'm saying black people should back off and have nothing to do with it and nothing to do with promoting it and no way condone it. Now, that doesn't mean you go out and do anybody any kind of harm. Like some black people are going around and beating up so-called transgender people and all this type of stuff, or calling them names and all like that. That's mistreatment. Mistreatment of any kind should not be tolerated. But now, when people come around, white people start saying, now, you need to get on board and come out here and lead the parade, and I'm going to give you all the money you need, all the money you thought you would ever want. If you do that, that's reason for total suspicion, over-the-top suspicion, because that's what they're doing. The white supremacists are doing it. And the code says, until we know that all that type of activity, I don't care what kind of it is a constructive improvement for everybody to get on board with it in the entire world, over every type of sexuality that you can name, particularly male with female, that this is a great improvement. I say that is yet to be proven. And so all through the code book it says back off and don't buy into it.
All righty. From the chat room, they've been talking about the movie Claudine, and I don't think that Claudine was on your list. Mr. Fuller. But anyway, Be Good One wrote this about Claudine. Said probably still free on YouTube, but it is about so-called black woman and her offspring going through all the usual problems, and the so-called black male attempting to be with her and going through the daily nonsense. 1974, Diane Carroll, James Earl Jones, and Lawrence Hilton Jacobs. There were others. So the interchange between Diane Carroll's character and Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, whoop, it just went off my screen. So therefore I can't finish it off. Let me make sure. Sorry about that, Be Good One. It sure did. It went right off the screen. Anyway, I hate that. But that's the way that things go sometimes. While I'm doing that, let's go to this caller here. I can't call your name now. I think it's Sylvia. It might be anyway. Here we go. You are on with Mr. Go ahead, please.
This is Stan from Pennsylvania, Mr. Bobby.
Okay, Stan from Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Stan. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, sir. I just want to go back to, I had a question, and what Mr. Fuller was talking about earlier kind of helped me lead to it. But in his book, The Compensatory Code System, at the end of the book, in the general compensatory quotations for thought, speech, or action, the first line in there, the first sentence is, there is no way. This was page 403, and it's there is no way to talk about the race problem and tell the truth and make logical suggestions based on the truth without white people being offended and without non-white people being embarrassed. And what I wanted to say about that was that it was a book that was written by a young lady in England, and basically the title of her book was Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, because she felt that it just was a futile attempt to do so. And also the other author, Robin DiAngelo, she basically said the same thing. She said that white people make it virtually impossible for black people to constructively talk to them about race and the race issues. And the simple question that I have of Mr. Fuller is it correct for those people to, write an entire book about that particular subject, or can it just be reduced to the one sentence that you wrote on page 403? And I'd like to stay on the line.
All right,
well,
thank you.
I wouldn't say reduced. I would just say I presented that black people, talking to white people about race. One thing I'm saying, that's got to be. If black people just talk to each other about race, that's just a bunch of prisoners milling around in a prisoner of war camp talking to each other about this, that, and the other. Might as well be talking about baseball games. I mean, why not? Because it's just a bunch of prisoners talking to each other about their plight. So you have to talk to white people. But now, I have here on my desk some notes that I made about things that I might say today, and this might be the time to say it. And I put it under the heading of scary moments. A scary moment of truth question, because I always say that all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So when black people and white people interact with each other, these are scary moments, all right? Either, real scared or a little bit scared. But everybody's kind of nervous because in the system of white supremacy, that's just the way it is, okay? Whether people admit it or not. See, but, I mean, it's a real scary or just a little bit scary or just a little teeny bit, just a little bit. But it's always kind of what a lot of people would call an anxiety. Anytime there's any interaction between a white person and a non-white person anywhere on this planet, any time of day or night, it has to be in the system of white supremacy. So here is a scary moment of truth question. That's the title I put it under. And I'll be doing this periodically, maybe. Scary moments of truth. And this is the question. Do white people need black people the most, or do black people need white people the most? Now, that's a scary moment. But when you sit down and talk to white people, that question, if it's asked, everybody's going to get scared of that question. That's almost a guarantee. White people are scared of it, the answer, and black people are sitting there wishing that the question wasn't brought up, because that's the moment of truth. Particularly for the black people always talking about Kemet and the great black civilizations, and we gave civilization to the world. All right? So it's just a simple question. A white person can answer, can ask it, or a black person. But it's a scary moment, truth question. If you're going to get to the truth, do white people need black people right here in the year 2021? Do white people need black people the most? Or do black people need white people the most? That's just a simple question, but it's loaded, and it's scary for anybody to attempt to answer that question in what you call a black and white setting. Oh, yeah, in the black barber shop, I mean, everybody can answer. Everybody holds up their hand right quick. Oh, yeah, well, white folks need us the most. I mean, we don't need them. We don't need them for nothing. Ain't nothing a white man can do for me. I mean, you know, hey, everybody, oh, yeah, you're talking that talk. But in a white and black setting, everything gets tense. Just ask that question. You don't know what to say? Just ask that question. Do white people need black people the most, or do black people need white people the most? In all areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Who needs who the most? Do white people need black people the most in order to survive on this planet right now, July 2021? Or do black people need white people the most? Do white people need black people the most, or do black people need white people the most? In all of those areas of activity, right this minute, if everybody had to, you know, just go their separate ways. White people go their separate ways. They ain't going to be in contact with black people at all. We ain't going to do nothing for them or nothing against them. This ain't going to be no contact. I mean, leave all the hospital wards. I mean, you know, and they ran out of COVID-19 serum. Ran out of needles. Ran out of hypodermic needles even for the drug addicts. Ain't nobody manufacturing nothing, because black people ain't manufacturing nothing. All right? So who needs who the most? You know, all the black people now who are doing all this talk about great black civilizations, this is the test. Right here in July, everything being just like it is, and white people just walk off and say, I'm not talking to you no more about nothing, and don't call me for nothing, and don't try to come across no boat looking for me. I'm not doing nothing for you. I'm going to break contact for the next 5 years and see how you people figure out how to solve your problems. And we'll tell them, goodbye, we can handle it. Now, are we ready for that?
Tell you what we're going to do. I don't know if we're ready for that, but we have to end the first hour. So hold it right there. Thank you for all those who called in, all those who were listening, and all of the people who have to go. Thank you for your participation and also for your listenership. Hope to see you next week. For those of you who are going to be with us for the second hour, stay tuned for the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and your co-host, Mr. Bobby, which will commence the new hour in 5 seconds. All righty, welcome back to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And if you have a question and would like to participate in today's show, you can by calling 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button and you will get in line or be in line. And that's good. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And I think I have one that if I can get to it, I will read that for you today. The chat room is open, and there are some interesting conversations ongoing in that. So hopefully we will have a good show here. Mr. Fuller, going back to something that was addressed in the first hour about freedom, Be Good One in the chat room mentioned that, I like what he said about freedom, said that in your word guide on the bottom of page 126 has something there. You got your word guide there, Mr. Fuller, in front of you?
126.
Yeah, at the bottom.
I got it here in front of me. Let's see
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and read that there, all the way till the end of the second first paragraph in the second page there on page 127. But starting on page 126, free/dumb.
Oh yes, I do have that. Free.
Yes.
Freedom fighter, free enterprise, free speech. And it says avoid using any of these terms and any similar terms. I thought I wrote something like that.
Okay.
I just didn't remember. And so what I said before does verify it. Avoid using the word free or freedom, using any of these terms, underline, and any similar terms. When others use these or similar terms, ask for a detailed explanation that you can easily understand. Ask questions, and then it gives an example of a question to ask.
Yeah, please read.
What exactly is free? Who exactly is free? In the known universe, is anything, any person, let's see, in the known universe, is anything, any person, or any creature free? Free how? Free to do what? In a white supremacist, free, let's say it says what I wrote, is a white supremacist free to make non-white people subject to white supremacy? That's a question. Is a white supremacist free to make non-white people subject to white supremacy? Well, according to the evidence, I would answer that question and say, yeah, they're free to do that because they did it. Is a non-white person free not to be subject to white supremacy? Another question. I would say, no. No non-white person is free not to be subject to white supremacy in a system of white supremacy. I don't know of no black person who's not subject to the system of white supremacy. Never heard of one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Is a person who is subject to injustice, imbalance between people, free? Well, all black people are subject to injustice, meaning the system of white supremacy, literally. So we're not free. Is a person free if he or she does not know and understand those things that he or she needs to know and understand? That's a question that stands alone. Even, you might say, quote unquote, separate from racism. Is a person free if he or she does not know and understand those things that he or she needs to know and understand? No, that person is not free. Even if you're just on the planet by yourself and you don't know what to do or how to do it, you don't know the difference between a rock and an apple, are you free? No, you're really in bondage. In bondage to what? Ignorance. Now, this is just my ad-lib answer to the question, because these are questions.
Yes.
The word guide is full of questions. In other words, designed to help you to think and come to conclusions on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Make up your own mind how to answer those questions, true or false, because it's going to be one or the other, either true or false.
All righty. Thank you, Be Good One, for making that reference. Let's go to the city of El Paso. Don't have your name on here. Wait a minute. Let me get you on the screen here. Okay. Wait a minute. Oh, there we go. Sorry about the problems we're having. You're on with Mr. Fuller. I don't know your name, but what is your question?
Name's Corey, sir. Hey, good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I got two quick questions. And I just brought the book, and it just overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed in a good way. But my question is, I'm in the military, right? So, what do you say to white people? For one, the first question is, what do you say to white people that say because there are a few black officers and generals now, and non-white people in leadership now, that racism is pretty much over? And also, do you feel that the white people are endorsing homosexuality because they're just perverted, or is it not the conspiracy to limit the population of the earth?
Okay, Corey, since you're new to the program, let me explain this to you right quickly. Okay, you can ask your two questions, but when you do, let Mr. Fuller answer your first question, and then we'll go to the mistake, that's okay. That's okay. Now, just ask Mr. Fuller your first question, and give Mr. Fuller a chance to answer. Now, what was your first question?
Our first question is, what do you say to white people in the military that say racism is over because there are now non-white and black officers and senior NCOs and senior officers in the military now? What do you say to white people that say racism is over?
There's no evidence that that's true. That's how I would answer that. If the person asked me that question, according to the code, I would say that is absolutely not true. When you're talking about racism being over, you're talking about a worldwide problem. Everywhere, in every village, in every town, in every province, in every whatever you want to call it, racism is the dominant factor. So when they say over in the military, are you kidding? That's impossible to say that in July of 2021. That's not true. That's not true. Nowhere near. In any area of activity. And in the military, so-called. The system of white supremacy is a worldwide government. How can you not be in a government and be in a government at the same time? That's impossible. So the statement is not true. There's no evidence of that statement being true. None.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Corey, what's your second question, sir?
My second question is, sir, what do white people indulge in? Well, he doesn't. He's not. He always says that. I appreciate that Mr. Fuller always says he's not an expert on this subject because he's born from a different era. But what do you say? Why are recently we had Lil Nas X twerk on the stage or whatever and stuff like that? They pay these little puppets to do this nonsense. But are white people just endorsing? Are white people doing homosexuality to just because they're perverted, or is it not a conspiracy to limit the population of the earth?
Well, wait a minute. Your question is what?
My question is, sir, do white people endorse and indulge in homosexuality because they're perverted, or is it something like a conspiracy to limit the population of the earth?
The evidence shows, as far as the counter-racist code is concerned, and is that the effect it is having on non-white people is not constructive. See, so what they're thinking long range about it and all like that, I'm not absolutely certain about that. But there's no reason to believe that this is an improvement. See, when we start talking about black people making progress and all like that, that's the part that hasn't been sat down and put piece by piece together and say, now, you're going to make black females into males, and you're going to make black males into females. Because some of them say that's an idea that should be brought to fruition. Take every black female that you can, give them high positions and all like that, and make that black female just as masculinized as she can possibly be. Make her take the position of a man, all right, and do everything that men do traditionally, and take that black male and have him try to do everything that a female does traditionally, sexually. I'm not talking about necessarily talking about different types of jobs. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about sexually. Just turn the black male into a female, one way or another, and turn the black female into a male. And that's an improvement over what you have now, because what you have now is a mess. Now, they're correct about that. Black-female, male-female relations are a total mess, and they'll remain a mess. I want to say that, too, under the system of white supremacy. There's no way to straighten it out. I mean, you can put up with it and tolerate it, but it ain't no way to make it the way it ought to be. People who say they have, black people who say they have, well, I got a relationship with my woman, I mean, that's perfect, man. No way. You may think it is, but it ain't nowhere what it should be. It might be satisfactory to you. But
is that a tragic arrangement?
Say that again?
Is that a tragic arrangement?
Sure.
What you just stated?
Yes. I mean, prisoners of war cannot be men and women. That's to start with. Men and women, you have to be mature to be in a so-called marriage. No way for a black person to say that they are mature in anything, in any area of activity, as the prisoners of the system of white supremacy. We are children. Children are not eligible to be married. They don't control anything. They're not managing anything. They're not in charge of nothing. And so we are in a childlike position. So you can't get a boy to be a man. You got to have a man with a woman. But black males are not men in the system of white supremacy. Not a one. It ain't no such thing as a black man existing anywhere on this planet. Now, that's a flat statement. Black men don't exist anywhere on this planet here in July of the year 2021. Not one. No matter how deep his voice is, how masculine he might be, he's not a man. He's just a whimpering boy. Whimpering under what? Under the system of white supremacy. That's what.
Yes. You make that clear.
His comings and goings. So therefore, he's not eligible to be a husband. He can't husband himself. I mean, he can't even be a husband to himself. Husband means, hey, you're in charge of something. You ain't in charge of nothing if you're a black male on this planet. And the evidence shows it. White people will prove it. Black people can't prove it to you, but they'll let you know real quick who's in charge. I don't care what kind of title you got. You're the president of some African country. You ain't the president of nothing when the white supremacists say you ain't. You're only that because they say you are.
All righty. Thank you, Corey, for your calls. And I always say, particularly to first-time callers, do not be a stranger. Mr. Fuller, I have a question from the Gmails. from Still Learning, says this, Mr. Fuller, race is a fictional characterization. The social label, quote, black, end of quote, is considered a race. Therefore, black is a fictional characterization. Now, is it constructive for people classified as black to identify as, answer to, and practice the behaviors of a fictional characterization? Thank you for your time, Mr. Fuller. Still Learning.
Maybe, and maybe not. But that is a point of view that needs consideration. And if it produces what? Just two words. And everything that we're saying on all these programs in counter-racist science, constructive results. So if you want to change the word black to some word that nobody never heard of before and see what we can do with that, say the black people are not really black people, that we're some new word. You didn't give me the word that should or suggest one, but maybe one could come up with a compensatory word for the word black and say we're not really black people, that we're some type of, whatever, and have a new name that takes the place in a compensatory way of the word black, and see if that will change our status. Well, I don't know. But it's something to consider, because all things can be considered. But I don't think it would make much difference.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from my viewpoint right here on this particular day. It may, just because I think it won't make much difference, doesn't say that it won't make a difference. Neely Fuller, he's just one person. But right off the top of my head, I think that black people, white people, when they look at black people, they'll still see the same thing, somebody who is born to be mistreated and dominated. So that's how white supremacists think. Regardless of what we call ourselves, the white supremacists say, you know what, you might have 15 or 20 beautiful new names for black people, or designations, or racial classifications, but you're still what? An N-word to me, because that's what they've consistently done. We call ourselves by all kinds of things. We call ourselves King Jesus. But when the white person, who is a white supremacist, look at us, that's what you are, maybe to yourself and to other black people. But you still what I call you to me, and you know what I'm going to call you. Now get out of my face, Negro. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Somebody must have hit the incorrect button.
Oh, okay. All righty. Yeah, sorry about that. What I'm going to get to Leona, I can't get her up there, so I guess they're going to cue her in. But before we cue her in, Mr. Fuller, you said something about a black person cannot be a man. Now, to clarify that is in the system of racism, white supremacy. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's a flat-out statement.
Yeah, that's okay.
No black male can be a man in the system of white supremacy. That's impossible.
Okay.
Not for 5 minutes. Under no circumstance. Always a boy.
Okay.
I'll die a boy. I mean, death is right around the corner for me. So I was born a boy, and I'll die a boy. I'm pretty well certain of that. That's just the way it is. I mean, it's ugly, and I don't like saying it, but it's the truth. And we always got to go with the truth.
Yes, sir.
A lot of black people, when their egos are so fragile, and mine used to be, that we run from the truth. But, hey, I've never been a man, never been qualified. Man means, first of all, you ain't subject to no white supremacy. No kind of way. That's the first order of business if you're black. You better not be subject to a white supremacist cannot tell you ever what to do, and you got to do it.
Okay, the chat room just blew up. Wait a minute. Transcendent said maybe that is why many black males decided that they might as well be a female since they cannot be a man.
Absolutely. You get a much better break. Lots of females, black females, are moving up in positions now. The black males, you know, I knew that even when I was a little boy, still a boy, old boy at that, you know. And I knew that, hey, I mean, my grandmother would do better going out there talking to some white man that was knocking on the door than to send my grandfather off of me, you know, a black male. I mean, oh, man, I mean, you know, now the thing is more serious. But see, the white man himself, the white male, has always, you know, set it up so that his interaction with a black female is a little more frivolous, you know, than when he's dealing with a black male.
Okay.
And we know that. I know it for sure.
All righty. Let me get to this caller since my screen is acting up. I think the caller might be on. Caller, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I can't get to your name because my screen is messed up, but they expedited you up there. Go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Okay, greetings. Thank you. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Mr. Fuller, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, you know, I first learned about you through her work and through her talks. And recently I was listening to an audio presentation that she did some years ago, and she happened to mention that your book, The Compensatory Counter-Racist Code, was like a manual of chess moves. What I mean is, you know, she used that analogy of the game of chess. I don't know how to play the game of chess, but that analogy of the game of chess and how the system of racism, white supremacy works, and how the main objective of the game of chess is for the white king to checkmate the black king. But anyway, she happened to mention that your book, the Code book, is kind of like a manual for chess moves. Look at that book, look at your book, and get some tips on how to move on that chessboard. I found that useful, personally. But my question to you is, sir, she also mentioned how it took about, 15, 16, 17 years for the Code book to get published. I understand she assisted you with that. And there was another gentleman, too, that typed up that 1,300 pages of your neatly printed work that you used to carry around in an orange suitcase. I'm grateful that the book exists, grateful that you and Dr. Welsing met. And my question is, I'm just curious, what was the reason that it took about, over a decade to get the book published? Again, I'm grateful that it exists, and I'm glad you all stuck to it. But I was just curious, how come it took so long? Just curious.
I didn't have the means to get it published. I mean, somebody, white guy, man, from McGraw-Hill Publishing Company in the early 1960s, came down in the late 1960s, came down from New York to Washington, D.C. to talk to me about publishing the book. And I didn't know anything about publishing or anything like that. But then he looked at some of the manuscripts, all my writing, like you just said, I was carrying around in a orange suitcase because it was just a whole bunch of loose sheets. And he said, this is too big of an editing job in the first place. So I'm not going to even fool with it. I'll just talk to some other black person who was writing the book. So it was dismissed. So actually Dr. Welsing herself, she had the format for the book all made up, took some of the writings. It was about 1,300 pages. So I picked out what I thought was kind of halfway the best parts, central parts, and made it into the 1984 version. And it took me some years to get around to doing that. I kept talking about doing it. Finally, I got it typed up. Dr. Wilson found a typist who was willing to do it because she had an arrangement of some type, business arrangement with that person. And even that person, after they typed it up, I went back to get some errors corrected. And she said, I'll correct these errors. But now, if you got another book project for me to do, I ain't doing it. Because she said, hey, it wore me out, all right, for one thing, because I was just, grasping for straws. Just anybody that would help me do anything. And Dr. Wilson stepped up to the plate. And she said, hey, you really on to something here, whether people know it or not. And I got some ideas of my own that I'm going to, based on the ideas you have given me, because I've gotten a lot out of what you have written. So then she went on the speaking circuit, and she was out there for years and years before anybody even knew about me except just through her. That's how that story evolved, and that's why it took so long. And then a doctor named Dr. Carl Hutchison, he looked at the manuscript, and I said, well, you go. He said, I'm going to retype all of this. He said, because there's so much stuff in here, and I know I can use it. I ain't passing up no page of what you have written. He said, give me all that stuff. And I had it all. I was writing on the backs of old cartons and whatnot, and I had scraps of paper of cereal boxes that I'd written stuff on. But he typed it all up. He was a fast typist, and he typed up all 1,300 pages of what I had, And like I said, I went through some of it and distilled it, and that's what the 1984 version came out to be. That's how that evolved. But over a period of years, because one thing, the things that I was saying to people, I was telling them about it. I was trying to give the material to people. And they say, man, I don't even know what you're talking about, Most people. And I knew that would be the reaction. I say, yeah, but what I'm doing, I'm trying to do something different because what we are doing ain't working. And I still say that. What we're doing now ain't working. I stick to that, even after all these years, 50 years of being out here, over 50. And I'm saying what we are doing now and everything we have been doing, I can see where it's headed before it even gets off the ground. Or I think I can. See, I don't know what will work, but I do know what won't work. Or I think I know what won't work. And so far, it has proven to be true. And just now, in the last 2 or 3 years, some people have begun to take notice. Maybe what Neely Fuller is doing is not only just different, but it's useful, which is exactly the goal that I started out to have. Because I knew that I was going to have a hard time. They say, man, you talk so funny. I mean, even the words that you use and the way you use them, man, well, what in the world are you talking about? I mean, get out of here. That's mostly everybody's reaction. Back all through the 1970s and 80s. Say, what is he talking about? He's talking crazy.
For those who are tuning in, we're getting ready to take a break here, but for those who are just tuning in, the book that Mr. Fuller is talking about, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Thank you for the lady, I don't have her name, that asked the question, but the name of the book is The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, and it is simply a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. We'll be back after about a 5-second break. Thank you, ma'am. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And if you'd like to get in contact with the show at the remaining 29 minutes, you simply call this number and get in line, 516-453-9921. That's 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button and you'll go right in line. I'll try to get to you if I can. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And if you want to get in the chat room, you can, and they are blowing it up in there today. Wow, they are blowing it up in there today. Good conversation. You can also do that. Okay, going back to the show, I knew this was going to come up, but before we go to, I guess it's Long Beach, Mr. Fuller, that statement that you've made on many shows about the white man's anus has come up again since you were mentioning that a black man cannot be a man in the system of white supremacy. But that statement that you've made, for those of you who are new to the program, this is a statement that Mr. Fuller has made, and you can see whether it is either true or not true. Mr. Fuller, what is that statement about the white man's anus that you always have said?
The white male anus is the new black vagina. Black vaginas are obsolete. Here in this modern day, when you start talking about the future of black sexuality, that's what the white supremacists, that's their doctrine. For the black male, his salvation is the white male ultimately. He'll go through the training period of other black males, particularly in the penitentiaries and whatnot, and then he will go for the goal, you might say, whatever it is that the highest standard in the Olympics. Well, in the racial, sexual Olympics, the ultimate goal of every black male in the future, all the children that are born now who are black and male, their ultimate goal is to chase after a white male anus. And that's heaven. I mean, that will be the goal. That will be his life's goal. He won't have no goal that takes superiority over that. This is what the white supremacists have planned. The white male anus is the new black vagina. Black vaginas, they ain't good for nothing. I mean, hey, put them on the dumping. Stop them up. I mean, fill them up with cement.
Wow.
The black female is useless. All right, go for the white male anus if you're a black male, and that is heaven. And they are pushing that to the hilt right now in July 2021 worldwide. They, meaning the white supremacists, both white supremacists, man, racist man, and racist woman. And they are financing it to the hilt. But that's the ultimate goal.
Yes, sir.
And every black male's mind, his whole reason for living is ultimately, he'll take a roundabout way of getting there, but ultimately the white supremacists have in mind that the black male, every black male on this planet will be worshiping the white male anus as the goal of his sexuality.
All righty, let's go to here. I can't call your name out because I don't have it on the screen, but you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I'm still learning, and I'd like to stay on the line too, Mr. Bobby.
Okay.
My question is, a couple months ago, I heard Mr. Fuller say on this program that everything that black people do is a reaction to the system of racism, white supremacy. And I just wanted to get an updated answer to that question.
Oh, it doesn't need updating, I don't think. I mean, it never did leave. It's never been modified. It's just white supremacy. The goal of white supremacy is white supremacy. See, a lot of people ask me, according to counter-racist logic, compensatory counter-racist logic, what is the goal of the white supremacists? I said, they've already reached their goal, white supremacy. All they do now is just play little games with it. I mean, just tweak it, just like you do when you have a perfect car. You know, if you got the perfect car that can do everything and anything, I mean, you know, the seats stretch out like you want to, and you can make it go anywhere, and you can push buttons, I mean, and go to sleep, and it'll take you anywhere you want to go, or if you want to get under the wheel. I mean, the perfect car. There'll never be another one like it. There'll never be one better than. See, so the people who believe in white supremacy said it can't get no better than this. See, anybody who comes behind me is just going to be second, you know, third place, fourth place. I mean, nothing is better than the system of white supremacy. So all you black people just ought to shut up and just fall in line and do this, what we're doing right now, do it forever.
Do it forever.
And just keep making it stronger and stronger, and everybody will be happy. Now, that's the white supremacist doctrine, literally.
Let's go to, looks like New York for Bill. Got you on, Bill. Go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Boy, you have switched up my questions like 3 times today with the stuff you've been saying today. I just want to let you know. For the first time, I want to say, you know what? I feel, in my opinion, Mr. Fuller, according to the White Supremacist Dictionary, I am a man. And because it's just telling me that basically I'm a person that stands erect. I got 2 feet, or I'm a mammal, and those things. So I understand your point about white supremacy and us not being strong enough to do whatever we want to do. But at the same time, I think that one is a little far-fetched. On that note, I just want to say that you were also saying that who needs, like white people, do they need us or do we need them? I think right now, white people don't need us, and we don't need them. So my question today, if there were no white people, would there be justice? And would black people be men or boys? If there were no white people, would there be justice? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
It sounded to me on my end like he was speaking in a tunnel, so I didn't get the question.
It did sound like that, Bill. So I don't know if it was a matter with your phone.
It's my phone. I want to say.
So I apologize. What I was asking today, I was saying, Mr. Fuller, that according to the White Supremacist Dictionary, I am a man. All right. Now I understand I kind of understand that counter code, the racist, but the fact of the matter is, according to their dictionary, I'm a man. But I just wanted to know if there were no white people, and if there was no white people, would there be justice? Would there be justice? And Mr. Bobby,
if there were no white people, would there?
If there were no white people, because I'm cutting it short. If there were no white people, would there be justice?
Okay,
if
Mr.
there
Fuller?
were no white people, would there be justice? My answer is, the truthful answer, I don't know. But if you ask me my opinion, being everything like it is now, no. Flat out. There would be no justice. There's no record of any people ever practicing justice, as far as I know, in modern history or in ancient history. I've never seen, heard a historian say that there was justice, according to the compensatory code definition, what I have written about the definition of justice, because it comes down to the definition of a word. What is justice? So justice, according to what I have written, not in other dictionaries, but in the Word Guide, justice is guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. No person. No person. You got to guarantee it. No person is ever mistreated. And you got to guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. You have to have those two elements. Guarantee that no person is mistreated, not one, not for 5 minutes. And you got to guarantee that the person that needs help the most always gets the most constructive help. There's no time in history that I have ever read about, no people anywhere who have ever pulled that off. They talk about it. They call it utopia, Shangri-La, Oz, a perfect society. But nobody's ever achieved it in ancient history or modern history. Somebody was always being mistreated. As far back as anybody, just if they mention anybody having a war or a fist fight, somebody's being mistreated in a fist fight or in a war. And most of history is about people in conflict. So if there's any kind of conflict, there's no justice. Justice is not about conflict at all. Justice is about cooperation to the hilt, ultimate, so that you guarantee that no person is mistreated ever, and guarantee that the person that needs help the most got the most constructive help. And that wasn't even true, according to everything I've read, when the pyramids were being built, and maybe 1 million years before that, before the pyramids. There's no record of anybody ever having what you call a society of justice. But that should still be the goal. Okay. Anything less than that is unacceptable.
Yes, sir. Okay, for those of you that are on, remember that you can get the book by going to producejustice.com.
Yes, that's why we even have that particular logo for this program.
Right.
Producejustice.com.
Producejustice.com.
That's what we're trying to produce.
Let's go to Joy. Joy, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, under the area 8, which is sex, on page 337, you state, as long as white supremacy is a dominant social material force among the people of the known universe, do not say that any non-white person is married. Instead, use the term attempt at marriage, cure-mated, and etc. My question this morning is why the term cure-mated and not soulmate?
Your question is why what?
Why do you use the term cure-mated and not soulmate?
Oh, you can use that one too. See, that's the compensatory way. If you choose to use, if you come up with a term that's not even listed there, use that term. You can say soulmate. It's just not listed there, but see, the compensatory code is about, hey, everybody can take whatever you see and say, I think I can say that better. And if you can say it better and it works for you so that it does what? Produces a constructive result, that's all that counts. Everything that you'll find in anything that Neely Fuller wrote is all about, will it produce a constructive result? That's everything. That's all you have to keep in mind. So if you look at any page and you see something and say, well, now he lists about 5 or 6 words here that people can use and the way you use them, and I don't think none of them are too hot. I got a couple of words I think that I can use in such a way that it'd be much better, and much better by doing what? Producing constructive results. That's the criteria, and that's the codified way.
Okay.
I mean, yes, ma'am, you are correct. If you say soulmate works better for you and produces a more constructive result, by all means, Ignore the rest of that I wrote. Neely Fuller, who's he? Who's he? He's just a fellow prisoner. I mean, who's just throwing some ideas around. That's all I am. That's all I've ever been. Okay, so if you come up with a term that works better for you, that produces a more constructive result, use it. I want everybody to understand that.
Thank you, Joy, so much. Let's go to Trey. Trey, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please. Trey?
Greetings, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I had two questions. One question
you only got
was
time
from
for one today, Trey.
I'm going to go ahead and ask the one that was presented by a member of the. So on page 422, there's a quote: "Ladies, never be ashamed of your vaginas. It's superb real estate." The question is, what does superb real estate mean?
Just what it says, if you want to use it. Now, let's see now. That's page 42? Did you say page 42?
422.
What page did you say?
400
what page of what book?
In the code book, Compensatory Independent Code Book, on page 422.
Page what?
422.
Page 422. All right. I got my book here in front of me. 422. I'm kind of slow here. Bear with me. That's okay. That's in the quotation section. Yes. All right.
Correct.
422, you say. All right. And what are you referring to now?
The quote about ladies, never be ashamed of your vaginas.
Ladies, never be ashamed of your vagina. I'm going to repeat that. Never be ashamed of your vagina. It is superb real estate. Now, we talk about real estate, we usually think about a house or something like that, or some land. That's what's called real estate. But the real real estate is the female vagina. That's just a thought. See, these are quotations that I put in the back of the book for people mostly to think about. Think about the black female vagina as real estate. Not a house with some flowers growing around it. That female, that black female, she carries with her in her body real estate. That's the real real estate. Why? Because it generates a child. All right? That's the entrance. That's the entrance door. The vagina, the female vagina. And then inside there's a womb that produces a child. So that's real estate. That's the real real estate. But the superior real estate here in the year 2021 is a white female vagina. Why? Because it produces white children, which is what white people are real nervous about when they're around black people, because they don't want any black child coming out of what they call their real estate, the white female vagina. They call it miscegenation and that type of thing. And it's controversial even today in 2021. People might say it's not, but it is. Look at the royal family, for example. What did that princess say about the child that was being expected that she carried in her womb. That black lady who is considered black, who is a princess in England. She said that people were a little nervous about the skin color of the child that's not even born yet. What is there to be nervous about? She's going to have a child. Nervous about the skin color, that's what. You can check it out on television. I'm just going by what I'm seeing. So you're talking about real estate, all right? Yeah, that's real estate. That's more valuable real estate, the female vagina, than Buckingham Palace or any of them statues up there that don't produce nothing. All the statues they got that's been carved by all these artists and architects and whatnot, they don't take the place of the female vagina when it comes to the real estate.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for your call. We got about 8 minutes to go, and we got 2 callers that try to get in there. John from Houston, I'm told you're next. Go ahead, John. You're on.
Hello. Can I be heard?
John from Houston, you're next. Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead, John.
Hello. Speak up.
Let's go to Matt. Matt, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, very quickly. My question is, what are your thoughts on Elijah Muhammad teachings? And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, he teaches what he teaches. And that's my thoughts. The code requires me to say that. That's part of the code. When I'm asked about any other black person, particularly a black person who is involved in talking about race, racism, or counter-racism, I am duty-bound to say this one thing, nothing else. He said what he said. Mr. Elijah Muhammad is not here on the planet anymore, from what I understand. He has passed away. He's gone. But his words are still here, and writings and speeches, I guess, on recordings. So whatever he said is what he said. And people can listen to what he said on his recordings. And that's what I think about what he said. Now, why would I do that? Why would I take that position on any black person who says anything or does or says anything, rather, about race, racism, or counter-racism at any time, whether the person is here or whether the person is passed on? I'm duty-bound to say no more than he said what he said, or if in the case of a female, she said what she said. And like you asked me what I think about it, I think that he said what he said. And so people can check out what he said and come to their own conclusions about what they're going to do about what he said.
Understandable. Thank you.
And that's exactly what, when I am gone, and it won't be long before that happens, that's what I want people to say about me. If they ask about me, well, this guy Neely Fuller, I mean, I never, I kind of heard about him. I mean, and some people said he was on to something, and other people say he was a stone crackpot. I mean, but what do you think about him? I mean, I just want to know your opinion, and I want everybody to say, well, he said what he said. Just check out what he said. See what you think. Yeah, that's how that's done. Now, the reason for that is to minimize conflict and arguments between black people about what somebody else said.
Okay.
That's a no-no.
That's a no-no.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a no-no. From the Gmails, Mr. Fuller, Luis said this, Mr. Bobby, can we ask Mr. Fuller to explain a comment he made about a month back, quote, always be ready to move, end of quote. It is related to his comment on, quote, do not fill in empty rooms unnecessarily, end of quote. I hope he can recall. If not, I will find a recording and write back. Regards, the C Revolution. Do you remember that quote, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, and I have made it not often enough. I need to make that quote every time I talk. Be prepared to move and move in a hurry. Which means all that stuff that you thought was so important, you don't want to sit out there in the rain in front of this latest place you just moved in 6 months ago because now the white supremacists said, hey, keep them squatters moving. They do that all over the world. Keep them black people on the move. Now that goes with the territory, and there's going to be more of it. You're going to be forced to move. So think about it when you go and buy this and buy that and act like you're going to be in some permanent place. I mean, nothing is promised that's solid. Well, I've been here. My grandmother built this house, and my grandfather, hey, in the system of white supremacy, you ain't got nothing permanent. So be ready to move. I mean, move like a soldier moves. I mean, a soldier don't own nothing. I mean, he's in a barracks and whatnot, and he changes barracks. He's all over the place. He might be shipped out at any time. I mean, to this place and that place. Might come back to the original place and might not. Wind up, after 20 years in the military in the Northwestern Hemisphere and what we call the Army, Navy, Marines, and like that. So you're all over the place. So you have to think that way because we are prisoners of war. Prisoners of war are subject to move anytime. Hey, you're in Camp 12, you're going to move over to Camp 18 next week. So get that little stuff you got together in your cell and be out of here. It's 10 o'clock now. Be ready to move in 11. All right? Now, that's the way every black person on the planet should be thinking. Don't accumulate nothing that you don't absolutely have to have.
All righty. Well,
don't accumulate nothing that you don't absolutely have to have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Well, we've come to just about the end of our show. So what we're going to do is talk about the chat room for a minute. A lot of conversation in there about vaccinations. Check that out. Mr. Fuller, we're going to give you the last word about your book and close out the show. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Okay. And I'm going to close out with another one of these scary moments of truth questions and that I made up just about 24 hours ago. What does the average white person see, and what does the average white person hear when the average white person looks at and listens to the average black person? I'm going to say that again. What does the average white person see, and what does the average white person hear when the average white person looks at and listens to the average black person? And try to answer that question. Just look in the mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall. All right? And answer that question. What does a white person, if you're black, see when they're looking at you, and they were looking at you right now, and you're black? From your hairdo right down to the shoes you're wearing. What do they actually see, the average white person? That's a scary moment. Truth question.
Okay.
For both black people and white.
Okay. Well, the clock on the wall says that's all. So, thank you for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, everybody. ProduceJustice.com is where you go to get the book. Sorry about all the bad stuff that happened today, but we'll try to get better. That is technical stuff and then whatever I messed up on. But we'll hope to do better next week. Mr. Fuller, thank you. Callers, thank you.
Thank everybody.